I show 1 minute till 6, so we're going to go ahead and call this meeting September 8th, 2020 Planning Commission to order. I appreciate everybody being here and practicing the social distancing and masking requirements of the town. I know it's an inconvenience, but always good to see people out for issues that they're concerned about. Sarah Lynn, did we have proper notification and posting of our agenda? Thank you very much. B on our docket is adoption of the agenda, which was emailed out by staff. I take it everybody had a chance to take a look at it. Any additions, deletions, and if not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Malcolm. Got a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the agenda is adopted, and with that, we'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, and the flag is in the back of the room this evening. I pledge allegiance. Thank you very much. All right, and now we're going to move to approval of the minutes from our August 3rd, 2020 meeting. That was a Zoom meeting. Those minutes were also provided to the commissioners. Any additions, deletions, or corrections to those?
Motion to approve as presented, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Roman numeral 2 on the agenda will be a presentation by Mr. Bucky Drake, and we'll go ahead and move into that. And I know several of you have signed up, and some of you came in after the sheets were passed to me to speak this evening. And time permitting, we're going to accommodate everybody who wants to. I've got probably 6 signed up, and if you're not on the list and wish to speak, we're going to try to accommodate that. So with that, let's go ahead and move to the presentation. Brian, do you want to preface this, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is just a presentation. Nothing formal has been submitted. Mr. Drake requested to come before the Planning Commission in an informal setting just to get some potential feedback from the Planning Commission. Again, it's not a public hearing in the sense that they submitted a plan that you will be voting on today. They're just looking for initial feedback on the project. It's kind of a little difficult to see, but you see on the map that you have up on the screen on the Oaker side, they're looking at potential 24 single-family residential lots. And then on the Boney Road side, potentially 74 lots. Again, this is all just a schematic phase, nothing official submitted today, and Mr. Drake just wanted to come and speak with you to get your opinion on what you have before you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Drake, go ahead.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank Brian for going through that. And let me explain the reason this is pretty preliminary. As you can see, we have gone through, this will be the 3rd design we have gone through to try to get what will be acceptable and to meet all the requirements and everything. With the new layout, we have avoided the items that before were questionable in some of the people's minds on the council, on the planning council. And so we don't have any flag lots that they didn't like. All these lots are comparable lots to what is in Oakhurst. We have now brought sewer across to serve those lots, and everything is in compliance. There was a couple of other questions, primarily to do with the fire marshal, and of course, this would meet all the fire marshal requirements. We can't develop it without that happening. We have met several different times over 4 years trying to get this worked out. And frankly, we just are, instead of going through redesign and everything, wanted to come in and bring this in at this point to see if there was anything else that we would need to do instead of coming up, having it redesigned for the third time and have to go back, because we've spent, hopefully we can get our money back out of this project if we can ever get it started. And that's kind of where we are at this point. But he's more than happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the council or from the commission?
So,
This would be the most lots you have tried to add.
no, sir. The most lots, it's as many as we.
Okay.
But
So, and I did a little bit of homework here, so I'm very aware that you've been through this process 3 times.
right.
And we certainly want to hear you and want to do the will of Blythewood through the planning commission steps. So I've done a little bit of background.
Sure.
So will you bring, or can somebody bring us up to speed on the number of lots you requested first go-round, which had consensus of Oakhurst from how I'm reading planning commission minutes? There was a gentleman's agreement from the neighborhood first go-round. We weren't able to hit that for some reason in development, and then you brought the second go-round, of which I was a part of planning commission. I wasn't chairman of the commission, but I was part of it, with the flag lots, which drew great concern not only from neighbors, but the
Right.
planning commission and staff.
Right.
And so this would be your third attempt, and certainly looks to me to be the most dense plan you've brought forward. Would that be correct?
Oh, Billy is not the same as we had the first time? Okay.
And
All
by
right.
how-
I'm sorry, Billy works with me.
No, you're
He's-
great.
As
And-
far as
and
the number.
For one of you, by how many lots is this the larger of the plan?
87?
Okay. And if, yeah, I got 12 in my math. I got 12, so we're close. From the first plan, from the first rendition to this one. And so you did not delineate wetlands on the plan that's before us tonight, correct? Sure. Correct, yes. So you have, on the property, you've delineated wetlands already?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I appreciate that. All right, so I just wanted to, we have, Marcus, you weren't with us second go-round here. You may have actually been here first go-round, and I wasn't. I missed that one. So are there questions for Mr. Drake? And certainly appreciate the presentation that you brought before us tonight. And we may have more questions once residents have a chance to speak. We may bounce back to you. Brian, Mr. Cook, do you have anything for?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, I appreciate that, and we may call you back up.
Thank you, sir. Just appreciate it. Let us know, and we'll be glad to do it. And like to try to do it as soon as we can reasonably do it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Let's go, is it okay with you, Brian, on the agenda? We have citizens' comments, so can we go ahead and take those? Or do you want to push those down under open citizens, or do you want to handle that?
Up to you, either way.
Yeah, I would prefer to do it now. So let's go ahead and do that. Mr. Carter, is he here? You have anything to add, or will you hang out for questions? Okay, perfect. Chris Shull, and I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. And if you will, for the record, just give us your name, address, and who you are.
My name's Chris Shull. My address is 6 Cross Ridge Court, Blythewood, South Carolina 29016, and I am a resident of Oakhurst. Have been since 2003. My main concern with this is twofold. Well, and also, let me also add that I've been a real estate broker since 2001. So obviously, I track values of homes, especially in our neighborhood. The last couple that I've sold in our neighborhood have actually brought record values. And we'd like to see that trend continue. I think everybody in Blythewood would like to see that happen with their homes. They would like to see them go up in value, not down. Anytime I've seen what they're proposing to do, which is put much smaller lots, which will equal much smaller houses in an established neighborhood such as Oakhurst, you're going to see a reduction in values. It's just the nature of the beast. We don't want to see that. The other thing is, when we want to talk about like kind, they came up the last time with a proposal that was good with everything except for the flag lots that they had, which were non-conforming. And what they've basically done is put a bunch more non-conforming lots in here, because if you look at the size of some of the ones that are currently drawn out, these lots look to be half to 1/3 the size on average. That would mean these are not conforming to the current neighborhood. There's nothing that small in our neighborhood at all, anywhere. And that's pretty much my comments.
Thank you.
Questions?
Questions from commissioners?
No?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Miller.
My name is Martin Miller. I live at 1009 Cross Ridge Road in Blythewood. I am a resident. My concern echoes what Chris about property values. And if you look up on the map and you see the one in the center, top in the center, with a little dotted line and a little skinny one, from the far left all the way over, including the skinny one, is my lot. So those lots are directly behind me are the ones that are like Chris said. And is it okay at this point to ask a question to the gentleman?
I believe you can do that, yeah.
Could you tell me what size those lots are? Well, we're not trying to argue either. We just want to make sure our lots average 0.9, right at an acre, all lots, and some are more. And my personal concern, I'm not concerned about all that at the bottom, but right up there, that where you have to enter Oakhurst front entrance and exit to access the homes that you're building, need to comply with what is already existing in Oakhurst. And that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Andes?
Good evening. I live at 1015 Cross Ridge Road in Oakhurst. I am a resident. Where Mr. Miller was talking, I'm next door to him. And if you see where they're doing the drawing, if I'm correct, according to Mr. Scholl, I will be one of the ones that is more heavily impacted than anyone else. There's about 6 or 8 houses that will surround me. I live on an acre and a quarter. My house is about 3,000 square feet. Most of the other houses are upwards of that or more, or right under it, like 2,800 square feet. What is your intention at this point with square footage? larger, similar homes to ours, maybe a little larger, on smaller lots. Comparable to me is the same. Not a postage stamp with a $3,000, or 300. Didn't do less than 0.9. Then also, he said that part of it is on the wetlands. So you're gonna sell lots to individuals, let's even say it's an acre, and you're gonna sell them property that they're not able to use or do anything with. Okay. My other concern too is Mr. Perryman's been here. I don't see him tonight. It's hard to tell with the mask on who's who. He has stated on occasions that he wants to work with the residents of Oakhurst, that he's concerned about the residents of Oakhurst, that he wants to be, that he's going to be a good neighbor to the people of Oakhurst. And if he's going to come in there and undercut our values, that doesn't seem to be a good neighbor or concerned with the residents that are currently there.
Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Long.
I'm Larry Long. I live in the Oakhurst neighborhood. My address is 100 Fair Ridge Court. And I've got a couple questions. First of all, what is the purpose of this meeting? He made it sound like it was somewhat informal.
We would say this is an informal presentation to Planning Commission, which I applaud a developer for doing, because it allows us to give early feedback before additional hard dollars are spent, and it allows the residents to come out, as you have this evening, and sign up and share some concerns before those hard dollars are spent. So he's not asking for anything but a little bit of guidance, and I hear the residents asking for the same. So, yes, informal presentation.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I can take that to mean that once he has a full plan out, we would then have a second chance to speak?
Most definitely.
Okay, great. So I only have a couple questions then. How many acres do you, and of course I'm only really concerned with the Oakhurst portion of it, how many acres do you own there? Okay. And are you intending for this neighborhood to continue to be part of Oakhurst 1, or are you looking at doing like an Oakhurst 2? Agreed. My real question is are you intending for this, for the residents to sign on to the Oakhurst HOA? Okay, so the covenant that I signed would be the same covenant that they had signed. Okay, so I did study the covenant last night, and you're right, a 2,000 square foot would have been legal in that neighborhood, and there is no delineated acreage in the covenant. But I believe I'm in one of the smaller lots, and we've got 0.8. So, you know, we're looking for comparable lots, and I don't really think you'll see a whole lot of fight if they're gonna abide by our covenant. They're gonna be part of our HOA, and that the lots are gonna be, probably at least as big as mine. So that's if you want guidance, that would be my guidance to you. That's all.
I appreciate your comments, sir. Those are everybody who signed up to speak. And I said early on, I'm going to open the floor. There were a few people that came in after the sign-up was picked up. Is there anybody else tonight that would like to speak? Go ahead, sir.
I'm Ron Johnson. I stay at the 1005 lot currently where he's gonna build houses in the back, in my backyard. I just wanna say, I'm like Mr. Martin, not only concerned is property value. That's everybody's concern, okay? If I decide to sell a year, 2, 10 years from now, I wanna get what my house is worth. And that's pretty much the main concern, but when I'm looking at the map, if you do that, that means you're gonna probably lose half of those houses that you're gonna currently build in our subdivision, okay, if you have to expand those lots. And my question would be, are you guys willing to do that? Is that a risk you're willing to take? Because I know once this thing is signed, you know, it's a done deal. We're stuck. Whatever you put back there is gonna be back there. So that was just a question, my concern, that are they gonna cut back, scale back that much? Right. And that's all the questions I have.
Thank you very much. Anybody who has not spoken want to speak? Oh, yes, ma'am.
I'm Ethel Johnson at 301 Oakhurst Place. I'm a resident of the Oakhurst subdivision. What I am most concerned with, just listening to the comments that have been made, I'm really, really concerned because you said this is the third time that this has been brought before the council. Okay, upon this third time, when you asked your gentleman, is this the largest dense population that you would put in this particular, he could not answer that. Now, sitting in the back and just listening, it tends to be a bit disingenuous listening to what has just been said. Because if this is your third time presenting this, and you know that you want to be good stewards and good neighbors of the residents of the Oakhurst subdivision, it is perplexing to me why you would present something that has that many home lots represented when you're saying that you want to reflect what is best for Oakhurst subdivision. One or two things. You're not doing your homework or you're being disingenuous. So, again, if this is your third time presenting this information, perhaps there needs to be a fourth time, taken into concern. If you're saying that it's not going to be worthwhile for you to have this discussion because if you can't sell those homes, then you'll have a mad exodus from the Oakhurst subdivision, then these things need to be dealt with right at the very beginning. And to hear that this is the third time, and it's almost as if I can slide it in, that I am going to be able, if they're not paying attention, then I'm going to be able to decrease those home values, make money as the contractors here, and stiff the people of Oakhurst. Now, that is just my personal opinion. So, as everyone else has said, we are friendly people. We also want to be good neighbors, but we are also very well versed. So now we're going to ask that perhaps you just have a conversation with the resident and someone just produced the covenant. Let's take a look at the covenant. Let's take a look at the covenant. Let's talk to the members of the Oakhurst subdivision. And let's really make sure that we are trying to be good stewards. Right now, it doesn't appear that way to me. But again, that is just a personal opinion from Ethel Johnson. So, as my neighbors, I'm saying we're going to keep a close eye on this. Because if someone is willing to present additional lots after, and this is the third time, then that really puzzles me that you said initially it was just a few things and you were almost in agreement with the folks in Oakhurst. And now to have this presented, and to have this presented in such a way and saying it's not to scale. Well, we need to see something that's going to be adequately representing the homes that you plan to build in that particular area. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Anybody who has not spoken wish to speak this evening? Yes, sir. Oh, no, absolutely. Come on, come forward.
The 3 times, and it's a little bit confusing now, the first thing we submitted in there was we were crossing the creek to join the Boney Manor subdivision into the Oakhurst. We talked to people in Oakhurst, they did not want that, they were adamant, they did not want the joining of the subdivision. Okay, so we didn't do it, so we went back, that's the first plan. The second plan we did in there, we had the flag lots. And those were 100% approved. The only thing that we needed to do was to have a meeting with Richland County. They call it a pre-construction meeting. And we decided to go back and look at various numbers. And at the time, they had what is called sustainable design. And when we started looking at the numbers with sustainable design, the type of construction that were required, we totally decided that we can't do that. We can't afford to do that. We don't see how anybody could afford to do that. So we put the plan on hold. We didn't go any further. Then we decided to come back in and redesign and use the same kind of design, but use curb and gutter instead of the sustainable design. We started presenting with that. We came over here, and everybody got upset about the flag lots. Even at the time, Blythewood's regulations did not say no flag lots. It said, I think, discourage flag lots. We had a couple of them. But that was to get nicer, bigger lots, more compliance with the Oakhurst. One little cul-de-sac kind of coming in, another little cul-de-sac coming in. Nobody wanted that again, so we're like, what are we going to do? We've got $250,000 tied up in this project, but we want to develop the project. We want to do it where it complies in Oakhurst. Boney's a different thing. Now, it appears to me that the biggest concern that the Oakhurst residents has is the type of house, the value of the house, the size of the lots. Now we've got something to work with. So we will work with it, try to get something other that will appease y'all. Y'all, I can't say we're going to be 100% what you want, but we're going to try to get close. All I got to say.
Thank you very much. We can certainly get that information, but that was not part of their presentation this evening, original Oakhurst. Yeah, sure. Anybody else wish to speak? Councilmember Brock, thank you for being here. Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. If you'll come up here so both the media and we can hear you.
My name is Rita Long. I live at 100 Fair Ridge Court. And these houses won't back up to mine, so that's not really the issue. But the issue for me, I have the meetings from the November 4th meeting in 2019. And on that, it says that, and this, looking at this map, this is where they took those lots, what I'm seeing, and just redrew. At that point, they presented, it was 8.38 acres that they said they were trying to develop. So I'm thinking the 15 acres, I don't know where they're getting the extra acreage from, but in November of 2019, there was 8.38 acres that they presented.
Yeah, Mr. Drake, you may want to speak to that, but if I'm not mistaken, in November, you did not cross the creek. Is that correct? You did not. So the lots you're picking up this evening would be where you are developing on the other side of the creek. Yes, if you would look at the map that's also attached to those minutes, you would see where they're getting that additional acreage.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And just a question for Mr. Drake. How many new homes, and I know this is preliminary, but how many new homes are you presenting on either side of the creek? Total new lots? Okay. Okay, thank you. Anybody else who has not spoken wish to address the commission this evening about this issue? Okay, thank you very much for everybody. Commissioners, anybody have a question? We're good? Thank you very much. And we will move on to action item number 4, which have two parts, A and B. Mr. Cook, take A.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item A is the zoning map amendment, planned development district to a D1 zoning district. This amendment would rezone property located along Blythewood, Muller, and Stirrup Mill Roads, tax map 15100, 1001, 12600-0201, and 12700-0121. You may remember several meetings through the last year we've discussed this property. Again, the planned development zoned property. Just a little background in history. The current zoning was enacted in Richland County. The property was subsequently annexed into the town of Blythewood around 2007. Subsequently, the property was confirmed with a planned development zoned designation in 2010. The original development compromises approximately 143 acres with 232 single-family units, 300 multifamily apartment units, and approximately 36 acres of general commercial. That is what was in the original planned development. As you probably know, the planned development district is a unique zoning district which allows for a mix of uses, or residential, commercial, and otherwise. The purpose of a planned development unit is to give some flexibility on the bulk requirements, setbacks, density, et cetera. In return, you, in theory, get a better product from a design perspective above and beyond what is required from the zoning ordinance as far as efficiency, economy, flexibility, creative site design, improved appearance, compatibility, mixed uses, et cetera. So this property is sat undeveloped for many years, and recently, within the past year, the Planning Commission and Town Council also discussed Section 155.272 of the Town of Blythewood Code of Ordinances that places a time-specific condition on the establishment of planned development zoning. It gives the Planning Commission a mandate to initiate a rezoning under certain circumstances. Those circumstances are included within your packet, but the gist of it is the Planning Commission shall initiate rezoning to a property to an appropriate district classification in conformity with the comprehensive plan when no action is taken within 2 years of the establishment of the base zoning. So this goes back obviously many, many years, and for various reasons, whether it's the economy, water, sewer, could be numerous reasons that action didn't take place on it, but mostly starting out with financial reasons with the original owner. It's changed hands several times since the last time we talked about it here at the Planning Commission. A new owner purchased the bulk of the property, with the exception of the acreage on the corner of Blythewood and Syrup Mill, but the out parcel there. So the new owner purchased this property, and next thing you know, he had signs on his property with rezoning, so that was probably not a great surprise for him. We did have the pleasure of meeting him and talking with him last week, and kind of gave him the lay of the land of what was going on and what the Planning Commission was going to be discussing potentially today. One of the zoning classifications that we discussed as a Planning Commission last time was the D1 zoning district. The D1 zoning district is a development district. The uses that are permitted in the D1 are included in your packet. It would allow some residential. It also allows some institutional and various other uses, again, that you can see within your packet. Again, today is before you is for discussion of Section 155.272 of the zoning ordinance, and a recommendation, as this is a rezoning request, for you to make to Town Council. Next, it'll head to the Town Council for the zoning public hearing, which is scheduled for September 28th of this year. The landowner, again, has been notified. Adjacent parcel owners have been notified, and the property has been posted and advertised in local newspaper. So I know that was a mouthful. This one is a little unusual. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Again, I think Commission's pretty well versed on the property we're talking about, and staff, thank you very much for going back in after last month and retooling this, posting it, and getting it put back on our agenda. Are there property owners, invested individuals that would like to address us before we discuss it? Or- Thank you, sir. Questions from Commission?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezoning of said area to E1.
Okay, have a motion, is there a second? Got a motion and a second, and now we can discuss.
Mr. Chairman, there may have been somebody in the audience that wanted to speak.
Yeah, somebody wish to speak during this discussion phase of the motion?
Or it could be wrong.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. That hurdle seems to have been solved. That hurdle at least was solved, the water hurdle. That's correct. Mueller.
Mr. Cook, could you provide us with clarification regarding Mr. Sharp's intention? If we rezone to D1, that does not actually prevent him from going ahead with developing that area. It would just require another zoning request.
If you make a recommendation to the planning commission to town council to rezone the property to D1, assuming that Mr. Sharp was looking to do a gas station convenience store, he would have to reapply to rezone that corner parcel. A plan development district, the good thing about a plan development district, it gives you options. The bad thing about a plan development district, it gives more regulations you have to follow. It's kind of a, pro and con of a plan development district. But again, just to reiterate, he would have to apply, should council rezone it to D1, for another zoning designation that would permit the use that, assuming he would do.
Thank you, sir.
I reinforce my proposal for a motion in the interest of the entire area there that needs to be sort of reopened or correctly zoned. And we'll come back to Mr. Sharp when he's ready to do so.
Any other comments from commission? I think this was a little bit long in coming. I know the Planning Commission for a couple years has been working toward getting this back before council. Councilman Brock is here. He's the previous chair of the Planning Commission. He worked on it. Commission's discussed it. We've worked through staff with it a couple different times, and now we have it on the agenda to move forward with, and I can certainly concur with the motion. I think D1 is very appropriate for the property in what it's been through and certainly addresses the citizen concern that was brought up. Getting away from that PUD or PPD is the correct thing to do. Was not acted on, was very dense, and the master plan and proposals would have had to been tweaked at best. So I certainly am in favor of cleaning things up and moving forward with somewhat of a clean slate on that property. If there's no other discussion or comments, we'll go ahead and put it up for a vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. Mr. Cook?
Sure. Next item you have before you is a zoning map amendment, Bethel Hambury Gymnasium, to be designated a Class 1 property with historic designation. The property went to the Board of Architecture review this past month, and the Board of Architecture review unanimously recommended the Bethel Hambury Gymnasium for historic designation as a Class 1 property. It has been determined by the Board of Architecture review that the Bethel Hambury Gymnasium meets the criteria for Class 1 historic designation as required under Blythewood Ordinance 155.540. Class 1 properties must meet a strict historic definition, and no changes shall be made to the site without prior express approval of the Board of Architecture review. Since this is a rezoning, and it will be reflected on our zoning map, the base zoning will still remain the same, being town center zoning. This designation for historic class designation, again, will be on our zoning map, hence the map amendment portion. It works the same as a regular map amendment, as you make a recommendation, and any final formal comments to town council. As the property being a historic designation, again, it will amend the official zoning map to reflect this property at 125 Boney Road, tax map 15200-0224, as a Class 1 historic site. It will move to town council for the public hearing on this amendment at September 28th of this year.
Chair, I hate to keep hogging the limelight, but this is a very important request, I think, to preserve a very important historical building within the town of Blythewood, and I fully support the proposal to maintain this last part of Bethel Hambury School so that it will remain there as a constant monument to the great work that was done by the school during its formative years. I just think it's terrific that we've got the opportunity to make use of it and preserve it as a marker of our town's history.
Thank you, Mr. Gorge. Brian, Mr. Cook, just clarification. What qualifies that gymnasium? And the reason I'm asking the question is if growth were to come in and there were, I don't know, a business, a church, a building that was deemed historic, and obviously there have been some meetings to deem that gymnasium of historical value. But before we just kind of unilaterally act, and I know that the new school's being built, and Richland too came before us and told us they were, for lack of a better term, sparing the gymnasium, and wanted to see that preserved and turn it over to another entity if possible. I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, and I personally want to understand what deems this the higher classification of historical site, so we have it on the record moving forward.
So the short answer to that is the Board of Architecture review deems it as a Class 1, relying on their expertise. The longer answer is Section 155.540 of our zoning ordinance the Class 1 properties. Basically, and you can tell me to stop at any point if you would like, but basically, the way it's laid out for the Board of Architecture review for historic criteria, it's a criteria of value scores adapted from basically the Richland County Conservation Commission. It's a point system, meets the qualifications for listing on a National Register of Historic Places, the qualifications for State Historic Marker Program. Again, these are weighted based on points. They don't have to all be met.
Right, and I don't want to stop you, but
Yeah.
what point value is this awarded? And the only reason I'm asking is, we operate at the pleasure of the council, and again, I wouldn't, and I agree with everything Mr. Gorge said, but I wouldn't want to say, okay, let's vote, boom, it's unanimous vote, not knowing what point system were given to this building, for what purpose they were given to this building. But one thing I read when I read this section of our ordinance, 155.540, is once the Board of Architectural Review moves, and if we vote, we have significantly changed a piece of property in Blythewood for good. And potential ownership and use of said property for good. So it's not that I'm against this, I just would like a little bit of clarification on what point value did it merit, because I've read through that at length.
So this says that any property can be applied to have this historic designation removed at some point, if
Right.
that were the case. Far as the Board of Architecture review, I'd have to review the minutes to give you specifics on how they graded this property. But I can tell you that it was a unanimous vote to designate this a Class 1 property. I don't have the Board of Architecture review minutes in front of me for any more specifics than relying on the board that, that's kind of what they do, to give that designation unanimously, based on a culmination of the criteria of, basically this whole long section of probably 20 different, different point value systems. To get a specific answer for you, I'd have to review the minutes for the
Okay.
Board of Architecture review.
And Mr. Kessler?
Yeah, for the Board of Architecture review, which is different from the board, Richland County Conservation Commission.
We don't have that score.
You didn't ask for it until just now, so I can find it for you. Or improved, depending on how you look at it.
I was just going to suggest that. I was getting ready to get on my phone to see if those minutes were posted.
I'll see if I can find them real quick for you.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, and I agree with your comments, and uses of the property could be possibly increased. I mean, if you take a school gymnasium and it now becomes a community building, the argument could be it's not a school gymnasium anymore, it's a community building, so you enlarged it, but we don't know what that is. So, yeah, no, I'm totally concurring with it. It needs to be a preserved building, and I have no problem designating it a historic building. I would just like to know why we're designating it versus the fact that it's the Bethel Hambury Gymnasium. What is the significance of it? And I know it's there because I've heard people in Blythewood talk about it. I would just like to see it as an official part of our.
Maybe some folks signed up to speak on it. So.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, can you come up? Thank you.
What do they call it? Blythewood Academy was first grade through 12th grade. It was the white school. Hambury Bethel is the black school. It represents your African-American community of Blythewood. That's why it should be preserved.
Thank you. And that would probably further codify my point of maybe the BAR minutes or somebody from the BAR coming and showing us the rating scale. And certainly I would appreciate that heritage, but I want to make sure, I'm going to be very, very careful. I want to make sure we're doing the will of the BAR and we know what we're stepping into in a culture of being very careful with what we designate what and what we put where, why. These questions need to be answered, in my opinion. So until we have that, I would defer my vote, or I would vote against this until we have that further information.
School
It
district.
would still be the school district.
Yeah, it's certainly, not to elaborate on the point system, which we can find that for you. There's certainly a historic remnant of the last African-American high school in the area. The category of, the age of 50 years or greater was touched upon from memory during the Board of Architecture Review meeting. But, to get specifics on the case that went to the Board of Architecture Review, I'll have to get that for you. Again, I wasn't asked ahead of the meeting, so we don't have it prepared for you. But it certainly, again, was unanimous vote by the Board of Architecture Review, which obviously are appointed by council to make those decisions.
And is there any time issue here? I know construction on the school is going to take quite a while.
I think there's some time issues in the sense that the potential that there are some grants that are being applied for through Richland County Conservation Commission, I believe, or some other funding organization. So it is time sensitive in that regard. If you want to vote, for it or vote against it, it's a recommendation. It's going to go to council, on the 28th. It's something that obviously is a rezoning, and you're making a recommendation to the council. So.
I just feel like we're making a recommendation solely based on the fact that
Yeah, that's,
I'd like to have,
it should be good enough.
I would prefer to have the same information.
And
Make that
this is,
rather than just.
this is a good point for me to bring up something Mr. Cook and I spoke about earlier today. I have asked staff on behalf of the commission to include in our docket minutes, approved minutes from the previous council meeting, the previous architectural or Board of Architectural Review, and the Board of Zoning Appeals if they have met. Because then we could sit here and reference minutes from a past meeting and maybe answer some of these questions, but to some degree we're handicapped because, and some of them are available online, but it would be nice for us to get those as part of our docket just for reference, and we have it early and we can read through them when we have questions. So Mr. Cook has agreed to do that. I appreciate certainly staff's input and assistance to the Planning Commission, but Mr. Kessler, I'm inclined to agree with you. I just think we're being asked to vote on something for a good purpose, but we don't have the information to vote.
Then, Mr. Chairman, shall I just table the motion rather than vote it down? That information that you seek is certainly available. I'm surprised that there wasn't somebody here to provide a stronger case or justification for this.
I think if you're willing to table your motion, that's the gentlemanly thing to do until we get there.
Yeah, happy to do that. I just have personal interest and
Sure.
knowledge of the background of all of this, which is why I'm a strong supporter of it, and that will not change. I understand your views, and I think what we've described is the best way forward.
There generally, I'm sorry,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman. There generally is a delay until the following month, once the minutes are approved from the board, because obviously they review and make any changes to the minutes of the prior meeting. So there is a little delay there with that, but certainly we can get you.
Mr. Cook, my understanding from Richland District 2 is is that they will maintain ownership of the school and the gymnasium until the new school is completed. So, yes, there is a time frame, but it's not that short.
What's gonna happen after the school? They
Demolish.
ownership of the gym at that point?
In our previous meeting, Richland 2 indicated they are willing to donate that property. At the end of the construction period, there was hesitancy on their part to maintain ownership of that, and certainly they would entertain moving that in, or the
The
Historical Society.
Society.
Which, again, what does that mean? What does that look like? They own a building right down the street. So I think there's some information that can come in. Mr. Cook, for clarification from you, if we table this motion and then council meets at their next meeting, will this be on their agenda?
Well, you'd either defer it, I mean, we wouldn't table it per se, it'd either be, you'll vote on it or you'll, vote to defer it, one of the two. Or you can make no recommendation, it can move forward to council with a recommendation of no recommendation. If you make the request for more information from staff would get back up and give it to you next month with the information you've asked for. That would delay it another month going to council, potentially, again, time sensitive from what I understand from those that are wanting to apply for certain grant monies.
Mr. Chairman, I totally understand where you're coming from about needing more information, but I do feel if we get a recommendation from the architectural review and it was unanimous, I just see it's only right that we move forward with a vote. I mean, and it's going to town council, so if we don't move forward with a vote, is it a definite that we're gonna get the information that we need next month? That's the question at hand, because we could be right back in this same situation again next month without the information that we need to move forward.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think the information is out there that we need. What point value was assigned? Why was it class 1 and not a lower class? What would in BAR's mind, what is the use of this property? Where does it go when Richland 2 is ready to turn it over? I mean, there is a plethora of questions that I would have before. And again, I respect the BAR, but just because the BAR voted unanimous, we still have a fiduciary responsibility, or certainly a commission responsibility to do our homework before we just thumbs up or thumbs down something. So that would be my point, although certainly respect other opinions. Mr. Gorge, your motion, deferring,
Tabled.
table,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
and then can we get additional information? Can you?
Yeah, I can get exactly what you asked for, absolutely. But it'll be coming back, if you don't have a special called meeting, it'll be coming back to you next month.
Do we know how sensitive the time schedule is?
No, I don't.
That's important to know too, because
I think if, yeah, I think if it's time sensitive, when we have the option
Okay.
now of calling a Zoom meeting, if it's time sensitive, that they're gonna miss some grant deadlines because it's not already designated a historical site, but other than that, we'll let it come to us next month. What official action do you need here?
Make a motion to defer it next month, asking staff to provide you with the requested information.
Do we have that motion? Have a motion? Is there a second? Yes, ma'am?
said, Mr. Chairman. Yes, ma'am, you did receive a letter because you're in the vicinity or adjacent to a property that we're talking about being the gym. Just a courtesy letter to let you know that this meeting is taking place. It wouldn't affect your property at all. I mean, the only thing that, the intent of this is to preserve the building so nobody will come in and tear down the old gym. And, it's protected as a, landmark for the town. No, ma'am.
Thank you very much. All right, we have a motion on the floor, and I will second the motion to get it voted on. So we can give staff some, just so we don't let this roll off with no action. So I will second the motion to defer item B, the rezoning of Bethel Hambury Gymnasium until next month, after we're able to review the information BAR used to get the Class 1 recommendation.
Would you include a potential Zoom meeting?
Oh, absolutely.
I think that'd be a good point, with,
Yeah.
with the understanding that this is time sensitive. That we would need
We don't want to miss
we would have
anything.
a- We would have a Zoom meeting.
So time-wise, if you get, by the end of this week, information that we're missing grant deadlines, and we have to post a Zoom meeting, and we have to give how long, how much advance notification of that meeting?
24 hours.
24 hours. So we can pull off a Zoom meeting pretty quickly,
Well-
and get it on town council's agenda next month if we're missing.
What you could potentially do, Mr. Chairman, if I may, is staff can get you the information that you've asked for today. We can get it to you tomorrow. At your discretion, call a Zoom meeting to discuss, and we can stay on track for the council meeting that would be on the 28th of this month, and then we would just keep it moving.
Yeah, I have no objection. Ed, you comfortable with that? Yeah, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So we have one opposed. Marcus, were you aye? 4 ayes and 1 opposed. Motion carries, and we will get that information by email from staff, and then act accordingly with a Zoom meeting if need be. So thank you very much. And with that, we'll move on to number 5, which is the comprehensive plan discussion item. Mr. Gorge.
Well, not a lot to update the commission on, but a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Cook and myself had a conversation with Gregory Sprice at the COG to discuss the options and the direction forward for rewriting the comprehensive plan. The first point of action is completing a service agreement or service contract with them, which is obviously a staff action, which will take care of. We talked about overall objectives of the plan and our idea of this being a needs and wants based approach, and what we want to do and what they're recommending is that we develop a form of questionnaire or survey that we can send out to the town to obtain comments from businesses and residents on what they see as being important additions, improvements for the town, and that feedback will obviously then be incorporated into the work of rewriting the plan, establishing viability, costs, timeframes, and all that sort of thing. So that's also something that Mr. Cook believes staff can address, and that would be the first actionable item moving forward. And with the comments that have been made in the press and discussions had by council, just reiterate that annexation will be a significant part of that. And so that would be included in the survey, and it would certainly be included in the text when we have an idea of the scope and extent of the interest of annexation into kind of Blythewood. So that's my report for what it's worth at the moment.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cook, anything to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With our comprehensive plan, as we mentioned before, the table of contents of the comprehensive plan discussed as a population element, an economic element, a natural resource element, a cultural resource element, community facilities element, housing element, and a land use element. We also talked about transportation and a priority investment. Obviously mixed in with the plan are the implementation and the introduction and purpose of the plan. So, as Mr. Gord said, we are engaging the COG to kind of get the ball rolling with that. It's time to kind of get the ball, so to speak. So, one thing I'll ask you each to do, if you would, is to think about what is important from your perspective from a town. And email me. What we're trying to do is to create a survey of sorts. I want to make sure that we're asking the questions that are important to you as planning commission members. I mean, I can go through our table of contents like I just did and kind of regurgitate what the comprehensive plan says, but kind of think outside the box a little bit. If there's some things that maybe we're not addressing, and even if we are addressing, that are important to you, send me an email so we can start compiling that information. The population element is one of those elements that going to kind of take care of itself based on the statistics. The land use element, I've said this before, the land use element is the element that we're going to spend a lot of time on because it's dealing with how the land is used or not used in Blythewood. Are we going to grow? Are we not going to grow? How fast are we going to grow? Are we going to annex everything in 29016? Or make that effort to do so? Because that's a game changer for not only annexation, but you get down to the staff level. You have to think about what that means in terms of we annex a lot of land into town. Guess what? We're responsible for the roads now, potentially. If Richland County doesn't want to maintain them, DOT roads, state law would say a town is responsible for their infrastructure, i.e. the roads. Are we willing to look at that responsibility and that relationship with Richland County or Fairfield County as we may move forward? We get down to our town center zoning, Redgate, for example. You know what the comprehensive plan said for that. It's based on the plan development zoning. Do we want to see growth continue that way? Do we want to pull it back in closer to the interstate? Those are your hot topics. Those are the topics that you get people out with pitchforks sometimes. So we want to spend a lot of time on land use. Where do we want to see property rezoned? As an example, you had the rezoning, go down Wilson Boulevard here a couple months ago. It was kind of split on opinions on how that should go. If our comprehensive plan is doing our job like it should be a pretty easy answer to that question. That is an important element that I'd recommend. If you haven't looked at anything, start there. Kind of get a feel for that. Obviously, our economic element is going to be important too as we grow or as we don't grow. I think it's foolish to say we're not going to grow because if we are going to slow growth, we need to put some mechanism in place to do that. If not, we're going to continue to see the growth that we're going to be seeing in years. Some of that has to do with annexation as well. So again, I'm sorry I won't ramble on anymore, but just start thinking, look at the comprehensive plan. Just start at the page 2 at the table of contents. Take a look. Brainstorm, think what questions you have that you would like to see us put together to send out to folks, put on our website. Because we're going to start with a website presence and start just kind of moving into it. We've kind of slowly entered into this, but we really need to get the ball rolling on this new comprehensive plan. And it will be very much driven by the Central Midlands Council of Government. But while they may be driving it, park belongs to us, so we need to be telling them where we want to
I appreciate that, and my conversation, Mr. Cook, with you earlier today, before I came on Planning Commission, I really dug through the comprehensive plan, the master plan, to wrap my head around what Blythewood wanted to be moving forward. And what you read in there, and I don't want to overstate the obvious, but what you read in the comprehensive plan is totally subjective, which is why I think it's hard to get momentum behind writing a new one. Because whether it's the planning commission or town council, if the will of a group supersedes what that document says, it changes on the fly. Zaxby's wouldn't be there. Zaxby's would not be on Blythewood Road right now, how it's sitting there, if we were following the master plan or the comprehensive plan. A McDonald's sign wouldn't be flying over the interstate, where other businesses paid to reduce their signage. McDonald's, right there at the last hour, came in and said, we don't want to reduce our sign because we're the beacon of Blythewood. Literally, that's what they told this commission. And town council agreed. McDonald's sign's still there. Comprehensive plan says it shouldn't be. Staff's recommendation on Wilson Road, which went it came before us 2 different occasions and ultimately was not rezoned, but that was right with the comprehensive plan and the master plan. We are not going to have a corridor of commercial property come at Blythewood from Wilson Road. There was staunch arguments on both sides. So for me, I'm excited and I want to dig in. I would challenge the commission as commissioners to, when we get it rewritten, pay attention to it and use it as the guiding document when we make decisions and vote on things. Not necessarily the passion given by, I really appreciated the lady who brought her letter. She's concerned with her investment that we're getting ready to rezone property. She's not concerned with it being historical or not being historical. She's concerned with how is it going to impact her life investment, where her home sits, and her property taxes. I love that. I'm glad she was here. I'm glad that citizen came out and asked that question because she received that letter in the mail. Which also means staff does their job because we let people contiguous to the property know, hey, we're looking at changing something. So focus groups, which Mr. Cook mentioned we're going to have to give the public an opportunity. ATAX, HTAX committee, those are shareholders in what the comp plan looks like. We need to engage them. It's a lot of work, but it's so important to what is going to set the pace for Blythewood for the next 10 years. I totally agree. And Redgate, I think we're pulling Redgate back. It was a step forward tonight to pull it back to what the comprehensive plan intended it to be. So I do think that those are steps in the right direction. So, absolutely, and I would not want to rubber stamp, which both of you have said. I wouldn't want to rubber stamp a plan and let the cog go running, because they will. They do it for other towns. And they give you a nice presentation, but it's not necessarily what you want. So we need to come up alongside you and staff and be engaged with what that comp plan looks like. Thank you both, and we'll get that moved forward. Open citizens' comments. There are none left. I will say, Miss Barbara, your little device on this table is so distracting, not in a bad way, but it does not type what people say. It's pretty close, but I had to chuckle a couple times because a couple times it was way off. Oh, does it? Okay. We have one resident speaking tonight in opposition to Oakhurst, and it typed that the wife wanted bread from the store. So it was, I almost had to chuckle.
You gave somebody a reminder.
Any other business before us this evening? With that, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
In a second? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.